Greetings everybody, this is Leviathan here, and today I am bringing you a new build guide. That's right, it's Legacy of Dreams Wave of Light Monk, and I usually don't make Monk build guides, but I've been playing this so far for about a week, and I'm planning to do quite a bit of Monk in Season 20, and I was dillying and dallying with the class, but now I'm just absolutely loving it. So a lot of people on stream have been asking for a guide of some sort, or like what I do, what skills, etc. So I figured I would put this together so that there's a nice resource. There's a written version of this on Diablo fans. I have a D3 planner. All that's going to be in the video description below. If you have any further questions or things after you watch the video, feel free to come and hang out. The stream URL is at the top there, twitch.tv/Leviathan111. I'm playing, like I said, almost daily, putting tons of runs together. You can see right now I've got one on screen for you. It shows you how the gameplay works. It is a Legacy of Dreams build, so we are mainly building around that gem, and that means we use a bunch of really interesting legendaries to keep the build moving forward with our gear, and we have some skills that just allow us to fly around the map, deal tons of AoE damage, and just, this is by far the best key farmer in the game. It is arguable because there are some other classes that farm keys very well, like the Demon Hunter, of course, one of my true loves from forever and ago. But this one, if you get the right momentum and you get the right, if you get really good maps and stuff, just because of the way in-geom works and such, it just helps you absolutely soar through these maps. You get a nice open map, it's done in less than a minute. You can see here, this one's already almost done. This is a pretty nice map. It's not even one of the best ones though. But yeah, you just fly. It's beautiful, man. I can't wait to discuss it with you guys. So we're gonna talk about all the skills, the gear, gems, everything you need to know, like we did in our last video. If you haven't checked that one out, that one is a Barbarian Whirlwind Ren speed farm guide for the Greater Rifts. So I'll link to that in the video description as well, in case for some reason you want to reference that. But today we're focusing on the Monk. So, like I mentioned, here on Diablo fans, we have a written version of the build guide. So it's got all the skills. It's got a general look at the gear, but the D3 planner will be better for that because you can just kind of show the the preferred gear, or sorry, the preferred affixes and stuff a little bit better on D3 planner. Here we mentioned, you can't show the crazy nice cube stuff that you can do in Season 20. So I write out that we're using Rapid Strike. However, this build will work in non-seasonal too. It's not one of those ones that's a Season 20 specific. We're talking about it here today in the reference of Season 20, but you can also make this outside of the season as well. And then I go over some of the different items to be aware of and things you can change out and stuff like that. People don't like to read, so we're going to talk about it, okay? So first we'll just go over the skills, and I'll try to be brief. This build moves quickly, so maybe I will try to be quick with my discussion of it too, but you know me, I like to talk a lot. So first up we have Mystic Ally, Air Ally, and I'll talk about the skills in conjunction with some of the items too, because it kind of only makes sense if you understand that we're using certain items to make some of the skills better. But Mystic Ally, Air Ally exists mainly for the spirit regeneration. It's going to allow you to make sure that as you're spamming out your wave of lights, that you're able to keep that spirit flowing back in. There's also a second additional help with that with Epiphany, Desert Shroud. Desert Shroud is there for the damage reduction. We do run a gold wrap with Boon of the Hoarder and Avarice Band, so there's a combination there. And that should take care of all the defense that you would ever need for T16, since you'll be guaranteeing gold with a maxed out Boon of the Hoarder. And that will feed into your armor, which it converts gold to armor with the gold wrap, but we'll get to that when we talk more about the items. So defense should be taken care of, but in cases where there's a long stretch and you haven't picked up gold recently, or you start out a rift and it's a little sketch, you have one damage reduction source here with Desert Shroud. That's also the reason why Serenity Ascension is here too. You can pop that whenever you think you might take some damage. Just to stay safe. I'm approaching this from a hardcore perspective, so I don't like to die because dying sucks. It's kind of a big reset. And you can definitely, swap things out. You can make it way more aggressive if you want. There's a rune on Epiphany that can give you even more spirit regen, so you can always go with that if you want. You have so much resource cost reduction in the build already anyways, from using a Cinder Coat and cubing Incense Torch of the Grand Temple. So you don't really need a ton of ways to mitigate resource spending, but you have the tools available to you. So like I said, there's that extra rune with Epiphany if you want more spirit regen, but Mystic Ally, Air Ally is going to give you some, and it gives you passive spirit regen and an on command spirit regen refill if you activate it. And we are using the crudest boots, which doubles the effect because you have double mystic allies. So that's really cool. Onto Wave of Light, Explosive Light. It's a fire rune, fire build, so we're building around the fire elements. That's why things like Cinder Coat work well. If you don't want to use Gloves of Worship, which again we'll get into gear later, you could go with Mage Fist. So you know there's just other options, but basically you care about fire damage, and this is the like explosive AoE version of Wave of Light. So it helps you really clear screens nice and quickly. The same way you want to think about like multi-shot wood. It just gives you that nice ability to target an elite, but also kill a bunch of the trash around, and that's what makes the run so quickly happen so quick. Is that you are killing elites, getting the orbs and progression from them, but also killing tons of stuff on the screen as well. Then the absolutely best movement skill in the game, you can at me, is Dashing Strike. Dashing Strike is so sick because it's just super smooth, it's swift, it's quick. And with an in-geom, you can fly. Like you saw in the video, you just go through rifts and it's like non-stop. With Quicksilver as a rune, we're taking that so that you can hold a max of 3 charges. If you have cooldown reduction, you get your charges back faster. With in-geom, you get them back like nearly instantaneously. That thing is just whipping around. And it just allows you to move through. You can dash through walls as long as there's not a door that would block your natural way into that room. You can just move through maps so fast, and that's one of the advantages this has to make it one of the best key farmers over classes like the Demon Hunter, for instance, that have to vault. Vault is great, but you can't really skip through like permanent objects. You can't skip through a wall or skip down a prison level to the door or anything like that. So this has some neat tricks to it, which makes Dashing Strike so sick. Mantra of Retribution with Transgression is next up. So we have this mantra. It's not for the actual damage that it causes. It's kind of negligible. All your damage will mainly come from Wave of Light. But Transgression as a rune gives you extra attack speed, and attack speed's nice because that means you'll get your Wave of Lights out faster. So you basically dash, 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 you come across an elite, bang, 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 get a bunch of Wave of Lights down, and you know the more attack speed you have to do that, then the faster those Wave of Lights will come out, you clear the screen, you move on. So that's why that's there. And we already talked about Serenity, we already talked about Epiphany. Things that you could change would be, you could change to a different mantra if you don't want this one. So the way that it works, right, is you shouldn't really care a lot about having additional movement speed because you should be dashing, and dashing's like ability isn't affected by movement speed because you're not actually walking, you're dashing. However, if you do get some bad maps or you don't have a lot of uptime on your in-geom, then you might want movement speed because you're going to walk a little bit, right? So then you could switch to Mantra of Conviction with, I believe, the Annihilation rune is the one where when you kill enemies, it gives you movement speed increase. And then there's also on Dashing Strike, there's a rune, I believe it's called Falling Way of the Star, where you can get increased movement speed after you dash. So there are some considerations to add movement speed, but ideally, you shouldn't care about that and just be dashing all over the place. As far as Serenity, if you don't want to use this skill, because it's kind of just there as a fail-safe, it's very definitely like hardcore friendly, you could switch that to one of the other damaging skills, well, sort of support damage skills, like you have was it like Heaven's Breath or Breath of Light, or you know, there's some skill that heals you basically, and one of the runes on it is that you can get damage increase after you cast that healing skill. And then there's also Blinding Flash, it has a rune on it where blinded enemies take extra damage. But these things, like, I don't know, you really don't want it because it's just gonna slow you down. Like, I gotta cast my Blinding Flash on this enemy and then Wave of Light. Maybe you need it for the extra punch if you're early on in your character's life and you want some extra damage oomph, then you can have that. But ideally, you should want to get away from it where there are only 2 buttons that you're actively dealing with are Dashing Strike and Wave of Light. Anyways, like I mentioned, there are options, so feel free to mess around a little bit. For the passives, these pretty much are the best passives for this build. There aren't a lot of like cool or great options for monks, so it's kind of what we got. Near-death experience, so again, hardcore minded. This is just going to help you if you do manage to get one shot, or you know, have a moment of weakness where you haven't picked up gold in a while. This will just give you that one extra opportunity to stay alive and, you know, reconfigure the battle so that you can get to a point where you are topped off on armor again and everything like that. I like it just for the consistency. Speaking of ETAR, gives you cooldown reduction. It's really awesome. Like I mentioned, you want some cooldown because, you know, that'll help you with uptime on Epiphany. That'll help you with getting your dashes back faster in moments where in-geom is down or you haven't refreshed it on an elite. So just having cooldown reduction in the build is useful. Seize the Initiative, like I mentioned with Mantra of Retribution with Transgression, it's more attack speed. you're going to come across a bunch of enemies that are freshly, you know, spawned, full health. And so whenever you attack them, you're going to be benefiting from the initiative bonus attack speed. So you just be able to boom, boom, boom. Get those bells out faster, get those wave of lights out faster. And last but not least, momentum. It's a nice damage increase, damage amp. You're going to be moving, you basically have this up all the time because you're just going to dash through a rift. And as you're dashing through, you're moving more than the yards required to activate this passive. So you'll basically just always be benefiting from this. So it's it actually synergizes quite well with what you're trying to do. So that handles the skills and the passives. Like I mentioned, there are some options. Feel free to mess around, but this is the setup that I have come to settle on. And also I'll give a shout out right now too to my good friend Tuba Hero. He's the one that plays a lot of Monk and the person I kind of talk to a lot when I'm thinking about build ideas and trying to figure out how other classes do stuff. Like, I trust his opinion quite a bit, so he's the one who kind of helped me with this setup. And I don't even think that I've tweaked it much from what he does, so, you know, credit to Tuba Hero for helping out with this for sure. Thank you, thank you. All right, so then onto the gear. We talked about some of the pieces, but we'll just go around the horn. For the shoulders, you can really wear whatever. I just have this here because it's the most ideal pauldrons of the Skeleton King, but it can be a bit of a bear to farm because it's an Act 1 only bounty cache special. So you can put whatever shoulders, like if you just get a random Deathwatch mantle or, you know, I don't know, whatever, man. Just put something in there that's ancient with good stats on it. Here we have Dexvit, CDR, resource cost reduction. You don't really need a RCR roll because you have so much RCR and Spirit Regen, but it can be nice to utilize. So there's that to think about. But I would say at least Dexvit, CDR would be good to target there. The helm, this is a required helm. Zokrin's Gaze, it's actually a Spirit Stone, so keep that in mind. Here we have Dexvit, critical hit chance. It comes with a huge amount of Wave of Light damage, so that kind of takes care of your Wave of Light affix on gear. 150% is the max. That's a huge amount. And basically this allows you to cast your Wave of Light away from you. If you don't have this on, then you have to cast Wave of Light essentially on top of your monk. But when you have this equipped, you can, you know, throw it anywhere on the map, which helps a lot so that you can kind of attack from range and move on. Kill stuff in front of you. So that's good. And then I have a diamond in the helm here for just more CDR. If at some point you have enough CDR, you feel like you don't need extra, you can even change this over, if you really do care about your resources and you're running out, change it to a topaz to get more RCR, or change it to an emerald to get more gold fine if you want to use this build to really like get your gold going so you can empower all your greater rifts. There's also that to consider. But definitely mandatory. I wouldn't put anything else in the helm for this build. On the chest here, Cinder Coat. I wouldn't say it's mandatory, but I would definitely say it helps a ton because everything it does is useful to the build. Increase your fire damage, reduces the resource cost of your fire skills, and then, you know, you can have Dexvit on there, sockets, and then in my sockets, both for the chest and pants, you can see I have diamonds. Again, that's another like hardcore minded thing in case I disconnect or like I drop my gold armor bonus. I just want the extra level of defense, but if you find that you're fine without that, feel free to throw emeralds in there just to get the extra damage. Extra dexterity. But yeah, so this like super fits the build in terms of what we want: more damage output, more cut to our damage, or more cut to our skills cost. So that's really good. You can run with a random, and that's kind of the way that Legacy of Dreams builds work in general, I should say, is that you can run kind of with any random legendaries, but eventually you want to move towards like best in slot options. So you want to get to these items at some point. You can even use non-ancient versions like the way Legacy of Dreams works. It's nice because it allows you to get some benefit even from a non-ancient until you get to like an ancient version of that item. But I would almost say to like move towards getting ancients anyways, even if they're non-ideal, and then eventually replace that with the ideal ancient item for like the max expression of the build. And the gloves, like I was mentioning before, gloves of worship are awesome. As you go through your rifts and you're doing like a long string of key farming, you're going to come across shrines, make them last for 10 minutes, and then they just kind of momentum snowball on each other, so that as you get one, you've probably cleared that rift a little faster, you'll find another one, and they just keep stacking and stacking. You can even pre-stack them all. If you have a Bovine Bardiche, open that up in the cube to go to the Not the Cow level. You always get the guaranteed 5 shrines in there, and then you can have those before you start your key farming session. These gloves come specifically from Act 2 bounty caches, so it can be a little hard to farm them and get them ancient, but there's only 4 items in the Act 2 bounties. So, 25% chance basically to get them. And it's not that hard. Eventually you will get some nice Gloves of Worship. They don't have to have ideal stats or anything, like just one version of them is good enough to get you rolling. And like I said, if you don't get these or you don't want to use them, you can always go Mage Fist just for more fire damage. On the bracers, typical Nemesis bracers. The one nice thing to keep in mind here is that Pinto's Pride, which is an item that we cube, and that gives us extra, I can show you here, extra oomph with our Wave of Light. Slows enemies and increases the damage. We do want this just for the increased damage, but you don't have, it has a range on the power, right? 125 to 150, which isn't even that big of a range, but say you want to get the most out of it, then cube this and wear a Nemesis Bracer, because it's likely you'll be able to find a better Nemesis Bracer, since there's no range on it. It's just, it needs to come with the right primaries and you're good to go, which is Fire, Dex Fit, Crit. We'll pop back up here to the Amulet, and that's Squirt's Necklace. So for this, and I think I need at this point to talk about some of the other resulting pieces of the gear too, so I'll kind of do a combination here, but Squirt's Necklace is an amazing necklace in that it gives you a huge damage increase at the caveat of not taking damage against your health pool. So if you combine this with any sort of shield mechanics, as long as you can keep the shield up, the shield will get damaged, but your health won't take any damage, and you'll maintain the Squirt's buff. So that's why we're using a Molten Wildebeest Gizzard here. You see I have one just for an explanation of rank 100 to see what the stats are like. I would definitely level it pretty high if you can. Get it at least to level 25 so you can activate the Absorb Shield, and it scales off of your life per second, and the gem itself already gives you quite a bit of life per second. So I have a nice size shield here, and then the combination is that we're wearing a gold wrap, so whenever we pick up gold, it translates it to armor, and this scales a lot. Like as you kill enemies and you get gold, you'll be getting millions of gold throughout a rift. And as you get that, you basically become almost impervious to damage. You take very small hits of damage from any enemy. So it'll never break your shield because you have so much damage mitigation. And that means you'll always benefit from Squirt's Necklace, which is amazing. And the consistent way to both drop gold and pick it all up is to make sure that you're using an Avarice Band. This is a Act 3 specific bounty legendary. It can be a little tough to get because there's a lot of items in Act 3 bounty caches. So you might have to farm for it a little bit, especially to get it ancient. But again, you can run with like any stats. As long as you have one, that's the most important part. You can min-max stats later. The idea here is that you want a Boon of the Hoarder, hopefully maxed out, and it's not hard to max. It maxes at rank 50. And then that makes it go so that you kill an enemy and it 100% will drop you gold. You pick up the gold, and now you're getting a nice bonus from Boon of the Hoarder with extra movement speed, but even more importantly, with the legendary power of Avarice Band, you're getting a better pickup radius. So now you're flowing through the map, you're picking up more gold, which is expanding your pickup radius. It also, when you kill elites, allows you to get those progression orbs a lot faster, so you can efficiently play through the rift, not have to like go back and forth and get all the orbs and walk around them and stuff. So you're just gonna flow through, pick everything up. That gold that you're picking up is then being converted to your armor, which is then making sure that you keep that Squirt's bonus up the whole time. So that's the combo. And it's really important because this, like, you can tell the difference when it's on and off of how much damage you're outputting. It really makes a big difference. So there you go. We just discussed 3 of our items there. We'll move on to the other ring, which is an Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. And this is also where we're housing our Legacy of Dreams. You definitely want to rank it up as high as possible. It maxes out at rank 99, so try to get that there. Already talked about it, so we can leave it there. And Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac's awesome because as you spend, which you will be with Wave of Light, it helps you reset some of your cooldowns. Your Dash and Strike, as a charge-based skill, is on cooldown when it doesn't have all its charges. So as you spam out Wave of Lights, you'll actually be able to give yourself, and you have to hit an enemy with them, of course, you'll be able to get yourself potentially some seconds back to getting to your next charge of Dashing Strike. And also, it'll help you with Epiphany as well to get to the next Epiphany and make sure you keep 100% uptime on that as well. So, anything that's a cooldown-based skill, Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac attempts to take a second off of it when you're hitting an enemy with a spender. So that's really sweet, but the workhorse is going to be your in-geom, because that's going to be the thing that really resets your cooldowns. As you can see, once you kill an elite, your skill cooldowns are reduced by 10 seconds for 15 seconds. So basically, 10 seconds is the max here, so you want to try to get a max in-geom. And that, if you think about it, the cooldown of Dash and Strike, you get 1 charge every 8 seconds, so you have 10-second reduction with in-geom, which means it's just coming back all the time. You're just getting crazy dash to strike. That's why you can dash like a madman after you kill an elite, and you just have to wait for it to give you the charge. It's incredible. So this combination works really nicely. Again, like we're stacking cooldown wherever we can get it, just to make sure that those times when we don't have an elite around, we at least have some cooldown reduction helping us get those dashes back and the uptime on Epiphany and such. But yeah, look out for a nice in-geom. That'll be helpful. Definitely want a nice Kiyoshiro's Blade as well, because this is another Wave of Light specific item. The legendary power here increases the Wave of Light damage, and then when the initial impact of your Wave of Light hits 3 or fewer enemies, its damage is increased by 250. So that'll essentially allow you to really do a lot of damage to the Rift Guardian at the end of the Rift, assuming it's not surrounded by enemies and stuff. But you do so much damage anyways, you're going to kill everything. So for this, in our sockets, we're putting, for our weapons, emeralds in there. That's pretty standard, just more critical hit damage. We have 2 more items to discuss. We have our pants, Swampland Waders. This is a Witch Doctor specific item. A lot of people ask how you can get this. It can drop as a non-smart loot item for most classes, all classes I guess, but that makes it really rare to see it. The best way to do it would be to just create a level 1 Witch Doctor, go to your Kunai's Cube, and upgrade rare pants into legendary pants. And eventually you will come across a Swampland Waders, and then once you get one, then you can just reforge it until you get an ancient one, and then hopefully they don't itemize well for most cases, so ideally you're just trying to get the fire damage out of it. That's mainly what we want to use it for. Then all the other affixes are kind of whatever. But that's the reason why these pants are included in the build. If you don't want to go that length and you really don't need to, it's just a min-max thing. You can take whatever random pants, Poxfalds, you know, some random pieces of a set pants that you've got laying around. And I guess that's one thing to keep in mind too, is that you can actually use set items. You just cannot complete a set bonus. So you could use like you know, Raiment pants and Justice shoulders and Sun Wukong chest, but as soon as you use another one of those sets, then you're going to turn off your bonus that you're getting from Legacy of Dreams. So just make sure that you keep that in mind. You can slot in some placeholders with set items if you have nice ancients of those sets, but as soon as you get a set bonus, you're going to be like, why do I do no damage? And that's the reason why. Last but not least, we did talk about Critis Boots already. This is another item where you can get some more Wave of Light damage, but like I mentioned, you get so much from the Zokrins that you don't really need to worry too much about getting it on boots. You can just get whatever pair of Critis Boots that are ancient and go with that. And that's pretty much the build, guys. That's pretty much it. So yeah, I hope this helps you out. It can take a little bit of time to put together, as most Legacy of Dreams builds do. Because you need a lot of ancients and specific items to really make it like super duper shine. But like I said, you can definitely go with some fillers along the way until you finally get into the preferred version of the build. So definitely feel free again to hit me up in the comments, check the video details. There are written guides and all sorts of helpful links in there. I'm really loving this build. I'll be playing it on stream, so come and hang by the stream again, twitch.tv/Leviathan111. We'll be happy to answer any questions you got. And monk life, who would have thought it? It's beautiful. Until next video, thank you for watching this one, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.